This week, we're looking at the latest offering from the Indiana Jones saga. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. If I'm honest, it's not something that we ever anticipated wanting or needing.
Especially after the Crystal Skull.
Which was a bit murky, wasn't it?
From what I've remembered of it, it wasn't particularly the great send-off that we were wanting, I think.
So we got this one. And it's all right, isn't it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not only a wave of nostalgia and feeling like a kid again, which I did. A lot of the points in the movie, I felt like a child watching Raiders again at points. It's nostalgic in the right ways. It's fun, and it feels like a good piece of cinema again. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm a person that grew up at the time that these were actually out in the cinema first time round. I saw Raiders at the cinema. I saw Temple of Doom. I saw Last Crusade. I don't think I saw Crystal Skull at the cinema.
Probably the right choice.
I think I saw it on DVD when it came out. I remember instantly thinking that this is not anywhere near the quality of the trilogy that I really, really adored. It was perfect timing. I was the right age to see these movies. They were just graphic enough because, let's be honest, some of the sequences were nightmare fuel.
Yes,
when you're a certain age.
I cried. Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was terrifying.
So we've got to look at all of that, and then we've got this brand new movie, this time from James Mangold, the first time that Spielberg hasn't stepped in and done something with it.
Yes.
And obviously Lucasfilm and everything.
He was an executive producer. But
yeah. And I just thought that was exactly the right decision of this particular story. We got the opening sequence, quite a lengthy opening sequence, and it wasn't really that kind of rambunctious opening that we expect from an indie film with like a big opening sequence.
Yes.
But it worked because of that, because it was standing alone in what it's trying to deliver this time. So, I mean, the first thing I think we need to talk about, we get Indy during the war, at the end of the war, and we've got a de-aged Harrison Ford.
Yes, which is a very big talking point, and even Harrison Ford himself said it's fine.
I've got to be honest with you, this is the best de-aging I've seen on screen.
I think it's certainly up there with the de-aging that we've seen with certain Marvel movies as well, with Endgame. I believe it was Endgame, I can't remember. A de-aged Hank Pym.
Yep.
Looked absolutely fantastic. I've also got to say a de-aged Nick Fury works.
Yes.
In Secret Invasion and the Captain Marvel movie as well. But this has to be one of the standouts.
I didn't feel like I was looking at a de-aged person, which, considering Harrison Ford's 80...
Oh, yeah.
Is crazy. There was a couple of little sequences where I thought, it's not quite worked, but it wasn't distracting enough for me to say that's ruined it for me. The actual de-aging process, they are close now to this being proper and seamless, and I thought it worked really, really well.
It really did.
We start off with quite a prolonged train sequence.
Yeah.
In some ways, it reminded me a little bit of a Bond type thing rather than Indiana Jones.
I did think that at one point.
But again, it was done really, really well. You had his new sidekick. I mean, in the past, we've had some absolute terrific classic actors like Denham Elliott. This time, we got Toby Jones, and that man just makes a film better when he's in it. I just love him, the way that he does such an understated, yet it bimbles around, and I thought he was great in this.
He has mannerisms that are so clever because as an actor he can entirely control the setting, I find. With TV shows like Doctor Who, when he was the Dream Lord in one of those particular episodes, he controlled the entire episode. He has such an acting capability that is so strong everywhere he goes and everything that he's in. It's always so captivating what he does because you are already pulled in for whatever he's going to do. In Doctor Who, he was a terrifying monster that you didn't quite understand, but he was calculated in a sense as well. And this one, he is a bit of a bumbling buffoon, but at the same time, he's not a buffoon. He has the intelligence, he is quick-witted, but he's also quite comedic in lots of senses that I really enjoyed. He's just excellent in this movie as well.
Yeah. And of course, he gets to be the relative of the other talking point of the film.
Yes.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who plays the goddaughter of Indiana. I thought she was terrific.
Honestly, There's always this weird thing online with Phoebe Waller-Bridge where people say that she's making things either woke or anything of the sort, which I think is just a bit rubbish. She always, I think, helps elevate scripts, but also enhance character roles in ways that actually make the movie and the story better. With this character, Helena, in this movie, I think that comparing it to other characters that we've seen in the past, we've obviously had the screaming woman that's terrified, which was based off of George Lucas's divorce situation while the kid was talking with him the whole time. And we've also had someone that can stand out and actually does a bit more of their independencies as well, but then it automatically ends up with a bit of a kiss with Indiana, and then the next movie happens. What was nice about this one was that Helena actually stood out as her own character. She didn't need to be, a damsel. She even addresses that briefly, which I found really clever and it was quite nice. She doesn't need to be a damsel in that situation. She holds her own incredibly well. She's a great character. And I think with people that are worried that maybe they're going to try and have her as the main focus, it's not an Indiana Jones movie, that's not at all what happens. If anything, the two perfectly align in a sense where they can both stand out on screen. At the end of the day, yes, it's an Indiana Jones movie. It still is heavily focused on Indiana Jones, but it's an incredible character to have aside of.
I think people were reading before this that she was going to be more of a Lara Croft type character.
Yes.
She really isn't. No. This is a well-rounded character. And again, setting this during the 60s.
Was it? Oh, yes.
She's obviously got the feminism that evolved at the end of that time, and it just works incredibly well. I think they couldn't have picked a better actress for it.
Agreed.
Knowing that she's probably told some of the script is only a good thing. I mean, I think that's one of the big things with this movie, that Mangold has managed to make some really fleshed out and developed storylines of the time that's passed since the previous iterations. And I think he's done that incredibly cleverly, as you would expect from the man that did Logan, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
But it just works. I was very worried going into this film that it was just going to be a pastiche of old Indiana Jones films, just to kind of round it all off.
Yeah.
But they took risks. They took bold risks.
Very much so, yes.
They learned the lessons of not going too far away from what can happen. We always know there's an element of suspension of disbelief with Indiana Jones' story.
Yeah.
And this has got a massive one. But it felt relatively okay. This is great. I can understand this. Got a believability to it, and it was done beautifully.
With what you have seen in the past with Indiana Jones, you know that there's always this grounded setting to a point, and that's fine. We've always had that with Indiana Jones, and I think one of the most recent ones with Crystal Skull, it's him in a fridge at a nuclear test point, and he survives that. We know from Mythbusters that that's not true. But it's, at the end of the day, it's suspension of disbelief, and that's what classic cinema is. It's just...
With that one, it became a stretch.
It did, but that was where the problem lies. Crystal Skull, I think, as a lot of Indiana Jones fans, we all said that there's good parts, but the bad is what outweighs the good, unfortunately. And I think with the previous three movies before that point, it was supernatural, and then to do Alien was odd. I thought it was just a bit like, I like that we can have this idea, but it didn't quite work. Yeah. And I also thought what was a bit strange with the last one was that it was supposed to be another send-off when Crusade was basically the send-off.
Yeah, Crusade had done its job.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful way to finish the trilogy.
100%.
And I think that the fourth one kind of did feel unnecessary. I think that was part of the problem with it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will skip the fourth one.
And I wonder if that's going to have an impact on this one, when this one really does deserve your time.
If anything, this is what your fourth one should have been.
Yeah. This one's quite a nice coda to the whole story.
Agree.
So we had a very good, prolonged and clever chase sequence.
Oh, yes.
And I think that was up there with Temple of Doom and Raiders in the sense that it was all action, crazy as hell.
Yeah.
And there were some really bonkers scenes.
Yeah.
You know that there's going to be a bit of give and take with whatever artifact is the choice.
Yes.
This one's got the Dial of Destiny. This one's got quite a good story going throughout the film.
Completely agree.
And it has a good presence as the main pivot to what happens. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just as a whole, I think Mangold's done something extraordinary with it. I think he's managed to pull together all those threads from the earlier stuff that you really love. I mean, initially, I was taking a little while to warm to it, not because I wasn't enjoying it, but because it is a different feel.
It is a different
to those early three, and I'm not even going to put the fourth one in here. The way the first three make you feel, there's a kind of warm fuzziness about them.
Yes,
that nostalgia element is there, and they're films that you can, no matter what you're doing, you can just stop and rewatch.
Agreed.
This one, it does a different job, and again, going back to knowing that he did Logan, it really is a kind of standout that he pulls away his own story.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Does it really fresh and uses elements from the trilogy, which you know. I mean, there's some wonderful callback characters. There's some wonderful set pieces that you know where that's come from.
Oh yes,
but it just ties it up really, really well. The other thing that we haven't discussed, of course, the score.
Yes, with the score, it's John Williams, and I still thoroughly enjoyed the score. I mean, at the end of the day, when you hear the Indiana Jones theme kick in, you always feel that wave of nostalgia, and you feel you're back at a time where you're a kid again. You're watching the TV screen, and you're like, yes, this is Indiana Jones back on his adventures. And that was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's a very different score than the previous ones, but I think that's fine. It's a new setting, it's a new story, and it's a new director and new writers. At the end of the day, if it's a different direction, it needs to have a different direction in the score as well.
I think you're right. I think that you probably put the nail on the head there, because it does feel like elements of the original themes obviously portray. You know what the Indiana Jones march is, but it doesn't really feel like that throughout this story. It feels a little bit more subdued in places, even though it's bold, and you do feel like we've moved on a little bit,
which helps.
Which again, John Williams, he is clever.
Oh yeah.
I didn't feel like he was goosebumpy this time around, but it did put a smile on your face every time the theme comes in.
I think if you compare this movie to something like The Force Awakens, I think The Force Awakens and this movie, The Dial of Destiny, is one proves how you do a movie if you've taken a long break from a very beloved franchise. And one is you take a break from a beloved franchise and you milk it. Yeah. Because Episode 7, it's the best of the three that are the newest ones, in my opinion, because it's the highlights. It is a show reel of what you love, with updated graphics, slightly different settings, and characters that you recognise, known as legacy characters, with some new and some that obviously bring back waves of nostalgia. And it's done well, but there are problems at the end of the day with Episode 7 because they don't go anywhere. Even George Lucas himself said that Episode 7 was just nothing new. It needed to challenge the technology, and it needed to challenge the stories of the previous ones. Yeah. With Dial of Destiny, going back to that, whilst the score isn't, it's not as crowd-pleasing like the other ones in the sense that, it's not got certain themes that you recognise. It doesn't need to. With Episode 7, it did. It used them a lot, but it also had its own scores. I would say that the scores of Episode 7, like you say, with Williams being clever, he did a score for both Kylo and Rey, and I love them both. I think they're the most goosebump pimple moments of the entire trilogy. With this one, it's not goosebump heavy, but it's a nice feeling. It's a comforting, warm feeling to go back to.
It's a magical underpinning of the story, I think, in this, because quite clearly they let the action, they let the story, and they let the characters narrate the story properly. There's some, as I say, there's some good cameos. The action's great. The CGI is great. Oh, yeah. The villain, Mads Mikkelsen.
I mean, when you've got villains in Indiana Jones, they're Nazis, so what do you expect? They're a very one-sided, one-dimensional villain, and they're a good, big bad. I think that at the end of the day, when you get someone like Mads Mikkelsen, yes, it is very much he's a villain, tick, which sometimes I think it can be distasteful at certain points where it's like, he's a villain again. But with this one, it's just like, I feel like he had fun with it.
He plays a good Nazi, let's be honest. He plays a good Nazi in this, and he is a boo-hiss villain.
Yes.
But he's fleshed out in places, which is really well thought through.
And a bit different to what we've seen prior, which I really appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to give any spoilers away, but this is really, really a magical send-off to the whole story. And very, very worth your time going to the cinema to see it. So, final thoughts, Jack. What did you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that this is a very nice successor to the previous 3 movies. Whilst the 4th is referenced and has to be because there are plot holes if you don't, I think the handling of how they deal with such plot holes from the 4th one was dealt with brilliantly. It was a nice touch, especially with the historical timelines. If one goes back and figures them out, it makes sense as to how certain things end up. With it being the setting there, I think it was a great setting. I love the visuals, and I absolutely love the feel of the environments and everything that was going off with the set designs and also the clothing. It was absolutely gorgeous in that sense as well. It just felt like a celebration of what makes Indiana Jones. Without milking anything, it was done, with delicacy, but also with care and respect for everything that has come before and what is now new.
That's a good way of putting it. For me, I thought this was a really, really good addition. It takes a bit these days to get some kind of properly visceral emotion to any film that we see, especially at the cinema, given all the audiences that we've seen them with recently.
Oh, yes.
But I got to say, the ending of this one actually choked me up.
I was close to as well, yeah.
Yeah, it moved me. And it moved me in all the right way. And it wasn't a forced thing. It was just a very, very brilliant way to close off this storyline. And I actually think we couldn't have had a better, more rousing send-off to Indiana Jones than this movie. And that is a credit to James Mangold.
Completely agree. And even thinking about it now, it's getting me a little bit, feeling.
I want to see this film again.
I have to agree.
Brilliant. So, Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny. Make sure you get yourself to the cinema to see it, because this one is a spectacle that you won't want to miss.